Hey everyone, how's it going today? So today I'm here on my garage floor and I get a lot of I see a lot of people asking about area rugs, Oriental rugs. How do we clean them? What's a pit clean look like? Can I clean these at home? So we're gonna go over some rug basics today. This is not anywhere near what you need to have knowledge-wise to clean these professionally. You really should go through a class and learn how these rugs should be cleaned. But can you clean them at home? Yes, you can. You can clean them right on your driveway in your front yard, and they'll be just fine as long as you stick to what you know. There's basics. There's certain rugs that I wouldn't recommend that you clean as a beginner. There's certain rugs that you can get away with cleaning with this water hose and it's a scrub brush. It's really not that hard. It's just knowing how wool works. Is that going to dye? Is the dye going to bleed on you? Are there certain things going to happen during the cleaning? So those can happen. So you have to be careful. Do your testing. Make sure you know what you're cleaning and how to clean it. These two rugs here that I have are cleanable in anyone's driveway. There are certain ones that I wouldn't recommend. Can I clean them in the driveway? Sure. But I know more than a lot of people on rugs, and there's a lot of people that know way more than I do on rugs, but I know enough to keep me out of trouble and be able to clean the rugs efficiently, make them look great. They're very cleanable. I do recommend if it's a handmade or even a machine-made rug that they be washed, not topical cleaned. You can topical clean these with a wool cleaner. It's not going to do as good a job as really needs to be effectively at removing soils and things like that. But anyway, let's get into the first steps or the basics on rugs first, and then we'll kind of go into how to dye test and how to go about cleaning them as well, dusting processes, equipment you'll need, and all that. And as usual, I'm going to go with minimal equipment here. You don't have to have a centrifuge for drying. You don't have to have a dusting machine to do the dusting. You don't have to have all of this equipment to clean rugs. Think about where these rugs are made in Iran, and a lot of these rugs are used in like tribal peoples where they're actually the floor to their tent and they get embedded with soil and they need to be cleaned. They don't have any equipment. They take them out and they hang it on a tree and they beat the hell out of it to get the dust out, and then they submerge it in a river and they soap it up and they let it run. So do you need high dollar equipment to clean a rug? No, you do not. You can clean these at home as well. You don't have to have all the high dollar equipment. If you're not doing 100 rugs a month, you don't need a $50,000 centrifuge for drying. You can dry it efficiently without. Not as fast, but you can do it. You have the equipment in your possession already, so today I'll show you exactly how to do that and how to go about not getting yourself into trouble on these rugs. So let's get into it. So I've got two rugs here today. This one's upside down, so I'll show you the front of it as well. So, all right, so this one here, so we got some medallions in the center. What's unique about this rug is the highlights. So if you're looking here at this medallion here, these highlights are silk. So we've got all these, the little highlights up. And typically when someone goes, oh, my rug is silk, and they'll say it's 100% silk. No, that rug's rayon. This rug has silk highlights, okay? These are really bright white, and you can see it more on the back, and even then, it's pretty dirty. This rug's in an entryway. But you'll see it when this is clean that these highlights in these little medallions here are very white. So typically, when you come about a rug that has silk in it, the highlights are going to be white, and those are going to be the silk. So then this one is a round rug. So it's right here. So it's a round rug. This is a Chinese-made rug. Typically you'll get, the Chinese ones are really thick. So you have a lot of fiber there. They're a little bit harder to clean because they get that embedded soil in there. This rug is at a under a dining room table, so it does have some spots and just general soiling. One other thing I wanted to show you is when you looking at these rugs, if you're not sure, if you're brand new and you want to know, is it machine made, is it handmade, how is this rug made? So we're going to come here on the edge. So when you see fringe on a rug and it's not glued on, sewn on, it's actual fringe, that means this fringe, these strings here go the full length of the rug all the way down to the other side. So they're one solid piece of fringe. So it's not just the fringe. Now, a machine-made rug will have the fringe sewn on to it. And that's because the machine-made rugs, they're built differently. These, and that's easier to see on this one here. So you'll see these ridges that are going along here. Those are the actual knots of the rug. So on the loom, this rug's up on a loom, and they'll tie an individual knot on an individual piece of fringe. So this string here, one of these strings, is an individual piece that runs the length, and each knot is tied on that individual piece of fringe and then packed down towards the bottom. That's another way to tell what's the length and what's the width. So we got a round rug here. How do I know which is the bottom, which is the top? So on a handmade rug, the knots will always be tied on the fringe here. So on a round, it's hard to tell because, well, which is the bottom, which is the top. It's round. On this one, it's easy. You just go, and it's really tight knots here, but those little loops are going this direction, which means they were tied on the fringe and packed down. So one of these sides is the top, one is the bottom. How do I know which? Flip it over and then run your hand down it. So if you're going against the grain on this, that's the top's going to be this one, because as it's packed, it gets a lay to it. So that end of the rug is the bottom of the rug, and that's you just know that by running your hand down it. And if it's laying that direction, then that's the lay of the rug. The bottom is going to be that way. So as they pack it down, it gets a natural lay to that end of the rug. So it's going to be the same on this way. So these knots, so we know this is the length of the rug here, which is the top, which is the bottom. Then you can come in here and say, okay, it's laying really well that way, and I can feel it. It's hard to see on the camera, I'm sure, but this is up, this is down. So this is the bottom of the rug. I'm a little off because the angle, yeah, right there. So that is the bottom of the rug right there. If I go this direction, I can see it a little bit right there. It starts to pull up on the fiber. It's going not its natural directions. So anyway, that's general construction. Like I said, this is really, really, really basic. There's types of knots. There's all kinds of ways that you can evaluate these rugs. Now, one of the main things is with a rug, you need to make sure that the dies are stable before you clean. So if the dies aren't stable, then you could run into a problem with, okay, I'm washing it and these blacks are running, or this bright red is just coming out of the rug. And then if you haven't stabilized the dies or done a die lock of some sort, or then you could run into an issue where the red dye is running into your white, or the fringe is getting dyed because all the red dye or black dye or blue dye is just running out of the rug and right into the white fringe. The white fringe is just ready to be dyed, so it just boop, it sucks it right up, and now you have pink fringe that you have to try to remedy before you take it back to the customer, and that can be really a difficult proposition to do. So how do we do that? How we test to make sure that the dyes aren't going to run? So I'm going to show you a couple ways. They're both pretty much the same way, but what you need to do is mix up a bit of your cleaning solution. Whatever solution you're going to use, and let me see if I have mine sitting here. This isn't my normal solution, but I only have these two rugs to do, so I went ahead and grabbed this because I was out of my other. So this is just a HydroMaster product. It's Woolmaster. It can be used to pit clean. So that's what I'm using on these two rugs. So you can use really any wool pit clean designed chemicals. So they're going to be diluted into 5-gallon buckets rather than a hydroforce where you're going to spray at the top or some sort of sprayer. You're going to use this as you're just going to mix up a bucket full of cleaner, and then you're going to go ahead and start cleaning. So let's get back to dye. So that's the product I use. So take your product, mix up a tiny bit of it. You don't need very much. Just mix up a little measuring cup or something. Take a paper towel or a terry cloth towel. Whatever you have is fine. And then what you're going to do is soak it in that cleaning product. Wring it out a little bit. You want it pretty wet. And then what you're going to do is what I did here. So I took that paper towel right here and I soaked it. And then I put it face down on the back of the rug. So this is the back side and what's most likely to bleed. Now you should test all colors on this rug. So this is a really light, really subdued, so it's not likely that these colors are going to bleed, but they still can bleed. So we have a lot of colors that are blue next to white, and the silk has the black around it and the blue next to a white here. So if any of these bleed, you're going to have an issue. Now I know I've cleaned this rug before, and the only one I couldn't remember was, did the medallions bleed? So I haven't checked this ahead of time, so this is, you're finding out with me if this is going to bleed or not. If the medallions bleed, then we'll treat it with a specific product. So let's turn this over. So we got no bleeding at all. It's totally white. It's a little dirty, but it's white because this rug is sufficiently dirty. So these medallions are fine. They're not going to bleed on me. So I don't have to worry about it during the cleaning. This was 24 hours it sat here on there. If it's not going to bleed in 24 hours, it's not going to bleed. There's certain ones that if I would have just set it here, applied pressure, and pulled it up, it would be just bright red with a loose dye. So what do you do if it does bleed? You use a dye lock, and let me show you that. Let's see. So this is a dye lock. So what this product is going to do, it's made by Bridgepoint. It works really well. Now I don't want you to misunderstand what dye locks do. Will it lock the dye in place and it won't migrate? Not necessarily. But what it's going to do is all this fiber has open dye sites. So the wool itself has open dye sites. The fringe is going to have open dye sites. Everything has an open dye site. So if dyes start to loosen up and migrate out, now that will help it not to bleed. But if it does bleed, what that product's doing is it's clogging these dye sites. So it's coming on here, it's filling up all those dye sites in the fibers. So then if this rug was bright red and all the red was flushing out, it has nowhere to bond to. It has nothing to dye because the dye sites are already full. So don't get into the habit of saying, well, I've dye locked it, it won't bleed. It very well could still bleed, but if the dye sites are clogged, it cannot re-dye itself. So if these medallions were bleedable, then I would dye lock the rug. Now, if you're unsure and you just want to be safe, by all means, just dye lock every rug you clean. It's cheap insurance. So if you dye lock everything and you missed a dye, bleeding rug, then it's not as much of an issue because you've dye locked everything. So then make sure you test all the colors in the rug. So on this rug, I would have to test the blue, the black, and the kind of the peachy color on there as well. Now, like I said, I've cleaned this rug before and I knew that for the most part it doesn't bleed, but I couldn't remember on the black, and I hadn't notated it on the previous that I had tested the whole thing. So make sure you make notations because you're going to get these rugs back year after year, or every couple of years you're going to have to clean them again. So you want to make sure that you know, hey, Mrs. Johnson's rug, we've tested it, only the black bleeds. Or we've tested it, nothing bleeds, it's totally safe. So then you know ahead of time, and you save this 24-hour testing step, you can get right to work on the rug. So now on this blue one, and again, I've cleaned this again a few times. This one I know, but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. This one I just clamped. So on this one I just used a bottle to weight it down, as some sort of weight is fine. So this one I just clamped it. You can just have a few of these little clamps, and then we can see there is no blue on this at all. It's not going to bleed. That's a 24-hour test. Test the back. Now another thing right here, invest in a tagger. So we tag each rug with phone numbers and everything. These are waterproof Teflon, not Teflon, I forget they were made out of Tyvek, I think. And they're little, it's got a little tag on there, and that typically have the guys double tag it, because if it comes to break off in the facility somewhere and this is lost, then I still don't know whose rug it is. So right now we only have these 2 rugs. It's not a big deal. Sometimes you'll get 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 rugs on site, and you'll want to make sure you know whose is whose. So we got these 2 rugs. Neither one bleeds, so this is going to be easy clean. And we're going to go out and we're going to show you how to do this in the driveway of a house. So as long as you have a slight incline, you don't need a heavy incline. As long as you have some sort of incline, you can clean these rugs very efficiently. So that's basics on rugs. If you guys have questions, please put them in the comments. But let's get to cleaning these rugs and show you how we do it. All right, so then step 2 when we're working on these rugs is dusting. Now, typically you'll see the guys on YouTube or whatever, they'll be using some sort of rug dusting equipment. So I know that if we're doing these at home, we're not going to have big dusting equipment. We're going to have whatever we can use. So one of the best things I've found, now you can do it several ways. You can do an air compressor and blow the dust out. You can shake the dust out. You can obviously put it through a machine and it'll shake the dust out. What can we do at home if we're doing just a small amount of rugs and need some method of dusting these? Well, you can go back old school, hang it from the side of a fence and beat the crap out of it with a broomstick or something. That will work. But if you want to move into this century and use some sort of equipment, we can do that as well. You may have this piece of equipment on site already, and I'm going to show you what is a very efficient way to do it is with an old sanitary vacuum. So we've all seen these. So old sanitary vacuum, and this is an old one. This is in fact the first vacuum I ever bought for my business over 25 years ago. So what we've got here is the wide track. You could use the regular or the wide. So what I did is, if you turn this around here, you'll see there's no brushes on this, only beater bars. So what you do is you convert the roller to double beater bars. Now you can order these beater bars. So all you have to do is disconnect, pull this brush roll out, remove the brushes, and put a double beater bar in. So all this is going to do is vibrate this rug. And what's nice about these is you can adjust it. So whichever rug you're doing, you can adjust it down or up. So if you're doing a real thick rug that's kind of the piles, holding it up and it's preventing it from vibrating on a different setting, you can set it however you want. You want to get a nice vibration of the rug to drive that soil out. So let me start this up and show you exactly how this works. So as you can see, it will vibrate the crap out of this rug, and as a result you're going to have, looks like this. And this was after a very short period of time. You can see the amount of dust is dropping out of this rug, and that was, like I said, very short period of time. So I'm going to dust this rug, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how much dirt will come out of a rug. This small rug, so this isn't a very big rug, and we'll see how much dirt I can get out of this rug just by dusting. No moisture. You don't want to add moisture to a rug until it is dusted, because all it's going to do is create a nasty, muddy mess inside your rug. You're not going to be able to efficiently get that soil out. So I'll be right back. Let me get this dusted, and I'll be right back in a second. Alright, so I've been going for about 10-15 minutes at the most on this rug. This is the first pass, and what I did is I went lengthwise, and then I turned and went sideways. One note here, when you're running a vacuum cleaner for a duster, you want to stay away from the fringe going front, and I know my last shot was just for looks to show you the dust coming out of that, but when you're doing the vacuum on this, make sure you run the vacuum widthwise next to the fringe, because what we don't want to get is get that fringe sucked up inside the vacuum, and then you're going to have a repair on your hands that you're going to have to pay someone to do. Alright, so let's take a look. I have not looked under this rug, so let's see. There is a ton of dust along the edges here, and so let's pull it back and see how much dirt we have on this first run. Typically I will do more than one run on this, so you can see here that's a lot of dirt. Now keep in mind, this rug is not very thick. This is a very thin rug. So if you look at the side view on there, I mean, we have a 1/4 inch at most here if you're squeezing it down, an 1/8 inch thick rug, so not very thick, and it's holding a ton of dust in there. And this is not, some rugs you'll have wool fiber in here. This is straight dirt. It's not wool fiber, it's just dirt. Alright, so we got pass number 2. We see we do have some dust here. It's hard to see, but you do have some dust, more on the edges, not a whole lot in the center. This is pretty good in the middle. Get a little bit of grittiness there. Most of the dirt is from this outer, this edge here, which was towards the door. So they came in their entry door, and that's the first step, was where all that dirt is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do one more pass, and that last pass was about 10 minutes. I'm going to do one more pass and concentrate on that outer edge. So this is what we're charging for on these rugs. So we're not just going to run a vacuum over it and then we're going to start cleaning. We're going to dust it. We're going to do all the steps, and that takes time. So you're charging for your time on these. Make sure you don't undercut yourself. This isn't a $1, $2 a foot process. This is, well, I charge $6.50 so per foot. So if it's got urine, we're going to probably go $7.50 to $8 a foot, depending on the condition. If it's a thicker rug, charge for the thicker rug. This is going to take time. So right now we're into it for about a half hour between these dusting passes. You're going to spend a half hour just in dusting, and then we're going to go to clean. So that's so you have to make sure that you're charging for these steps, and you have to do all these steps. If you don't get all this dirt out, you're going to have problems with the rug. It may look good as you clean it, and then as it dries, it's going to want to wick. Plus, you know that you're not going to be able to get all that soil out in the wash step if you don't get it out as it's dry. So let me do one more pass here, and I'll be right back. All right, here we go. Third try, or third pass. So let's see how it looks. So much better. That's what I would call acceptable to clean. So let's get it out of here. A little bit here on this end. Still a little bit of dirt coming out of that. I really vibrated it good on that end, and a little bit here in the center, but not bad. I'm ready to clean. with that. And then I'm also going to sweep all this up and show you exactly how much dirt came out of this rug. So I'll be right back with that in just a second. All right, so here is the dirt that came out of that. So we've got a little bit in the bottom of that jar. I think I weighted it a couple ounces of soil, just straight dirt right out of there before we're even applying the moisture that needs to come out. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how you set up to clean. So out here we've got the incline. Here what I'm going to do is hose this off. Now make sure you check with your local regulations and see how they view car wash water. If you're washing your car in your driveway, you can do a small rug like this. It's not anything that you're using in here that's going to be detrimental. It's mild soap, just like you'd use on a car wash. Now, if you're not allowed to come out and just drain straight in, what you want to do is you can easily capture this. So most driveways have an incline like this at the end. So all you'd have to do, plastic your driveway, run plastic down your driveway, just get however wide you need, 10 feet, 15 feet to cover the width of this here. Set your rug down in the center, and then as it flows down, the incline will bring that water down, and then you put a barrier here. You just build a barrier. You can do 2x4s, a piece of pipe, whatever it takes, and then build it up on the side here, and what you create is a trough here right at gutter level. So inside that trough, you just put a submersible pump, and then best way to do it is run a hose over, and it just depends on your home what you've got here. So I have in my yard the clean out right here. So that's where the drain hose will go, right into the clean out, directly into the sewer drain. So that's the optimal way to do it. You can't drain in the street. This rug is a little tiny. It's not going to take much water, so we're going to just drain it straight through, and I'm not going to worry too much about it. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to run the vacuum cleaner over the top, and just the suction vacuum cleaner, so the standard one I'd use for carpet cleaning, over the top, and that's just going to get the soil that we dusted it, but a lot of that soil is just kind of sticking there, so we're going to suck that rest out, and then we're going to get to wet cleaning this rug. So let me vacuum this, get it set up, get the driveway sprayed out, and we'll get you back here in just a couple minutes. All right, here we go. So we got the rug laid out. One note here, when you're laying out the rug, whichever way you're going to be moving the water, so towards the bottom of the driveway, you want the lay to go this direction. So this direction is top of the rug, this direction's bottom of the rug. So you want the bottom of the rug the direction that you're going to be flowing the water. So I'm going to get the camera set up so you can kind of see what goes on here, and I'll be right back. All right, so we got here is 5 gallons of mixed solution. So just follow the directions on the bottle for pit clean, and I got 5 gallons, should be plenty to do this rug. So I'm going to go ahead and douse it, and we'll get to it. So just make sure you got every stitch wet. We don't want to leave anything dry. And if you're doing this, the color stabilization step, you're going to do it prior to this. In kind of the same manner, you want to make sure that all the die sites are filled. So now we're going to scrub. I'll show you how to do that. So the pile brush is the best way to go ahead and scrub these. You could do with one of these as well for like the fringes, things like that. This works good for both. So grab a pile brush, you can get them at John Donne, I believe, and just scrub away. Alright, another little trick. So I've got my normal carpet cleaning wand here. So just a 2-jet wand with a Teflon glide on it. The Teflon glide is crucial here. You could do it without, but it's going to work much better with. So you stick your water hose in the back of the wand. Just typical, regular, run-of-the-mill garden hose. And we're going to turn that on here. And this is what we're going to get. So it's going to come burbling out of the bottom of that wand. So what that's going to do is when you are extracting, not so much extracting, but washing, all you're going to do is be going out just like that. And then all that dirty water is going to push right out. So then when you pull it back, it's replenishing the water supply in that rug. So it's just going to continually go back and forth, washing that rug out. So this is the best, most efficient way of getting that water, dirty water, to come out. So I'm going to leave it here and show you guys how exactly we're going to do this.
So with this step, all you really need to do is keep on flushing water through the rug until the water runs clear. So I'll usually start at that top end and work my way down. You'll see me go sideways in certain areas, and usually that's just flushing in different directions. Like by the fringe, it's sometimes easier to flush the dirt out right on the edge of that back half if you just go sideways on it, because it's a little bit more difficult to. With the bottom, you're just pushing it straight out the rug, but with the top, like right here, it's just easier to hit that edge, that top edge, going sideways, because you can't really turn around and go backwards because you're going against the grain. So you just go sideways and flush the top half of that rug until it runs clear, and then you can just turn and go lengthwise down the rug and just continue to flush out until that water's completely clear. Sometimes you won't get every last bit of the suds to stop, because some of these shampoos have a lot of suds. Some are better than others. This one isn't the best, so it has a little bit of a suds that are hard to get out. Some other ones are better. The one I prefer the most is called X-Tol. That's X-T-O-L, I believe. That product is excellent, but I was out of it, and this was at my supplier, so I went ahead and bought it. But anyway, you'll just watch me go through this rug, and it's just going to continue to go over it until the water runs clear, and then you're done with that step. So I'm going to speed it up here so you can kind of see the final portion of this rinse, and then we'll get on to the next step. So what I did here was take the hose out of the wand, and I'm just going to blast these fringe clean. These fringe weren't in bad shape, so not a big deal to get them clean by just spraying them off with your water hose in your thumb, blocking straighten the stream out. Other than that, if it's really, really bad, you can use when carpet's done and dried, you can actually detail those fringe with your truck mount or portable unit, and any cotton cleaner you would use for upholstery. You can use a stronger cleaner on the cotton fringe than you would on the rug in general. Then all we're going to do here is, since that water hose is out of the wand, I'm just going to push the excess water out of the rug so that there's not quite as much to extract with the truck mount later. And don't feel bad if you have a portable. That will work just as good with a portable. Just do some extra dry strokes there, and you won't have any problem. with that.
And that's it for the cleaning, the washing. Now all you need to do at this point is extract it, get all the water out that you can, and then set up to dry. Now you can do it a couple ways. You could just leave it out in the sun. Sunshine is the best way to dry rugs. So just drape it over a chair or something. The size rug is really small. You just put it over the side of a piece of lawn furniture or something. It's going to work just fine. If not, if it's a bigger rug, just put some blowers underneath it. On rugs, typically I would recommend drying them upside down, so face fiber down, and then run the blowers underneath at that point. You do want to do one more final step here, and that's to groom the rug before you set up drying and everything. Just make sure it's all brushed, and even if you have any wand strokes or anything like that, you're going to get those out with the grooming after you extract. So what I'm going to do with this one is I am going to just kind of drape it over something because it's nice and 100-degree weather today. Should dry really efficiently. So all right, so I'm going to groom it, extract it, and I'll be back in a minute.
Alright, so just when you're extracting, get as much water out as you can. Usually if it's a truck mount, I'm going to go over it a couple times, 2 or 3 times, to get as much water out as I can. That just speeds drying, so it's going to dry quicker the more water you get out. A darker rug where it's really dark colors is going to get really hot and dry really fast. The lighter colors will dry a little bit slower. This one's pretty dark, so it's going to suck up a lot of sun energy and dry pretty quickly. Then once you get the body of the rug done, just disconnect the hose and go straight for the fringe. This is absolutely crucial. If you leave the fringe too wet, they're going to turn brown on you. Cellulosic browning, just like a piece of cotton furniture will do. But here it's exasperated, so if you have a little bit of soil still in the rug that you didn't quite get everything out, the soil as it's drying is also going to wick out the fringe. So you want to make sure you get these fringe as dry as you can. So get that directly on with the hose and suck as much water out as you can. Then when you set up your blowers, make sure it is, I usually set a blower maybe blowing at each end, so one at each end of the rug, and blowing out that opposite end, and you'll see the fringe move. So you want to get the fringe, some air movement on those fringe, especially if a bigger rug, you might have to use 3 or 4 or 5 blowers to make sure there's a sufficient amount of air blowing on those fringe in particular, because they will cause you issue and you will have to detail them if they turn brown on you. It's not a big deal, you can just detail it out, but it is one of those things that can happen. Alright, so last step before drying will be to groom. Now I'm grooming with the same pile brush. They work really well for this as well, but there is a special brush for that. It's for wool pile. It's a very thin bristle, and those are the most gentle of brushes. This will work on most rugs, but get yourself a pile brush for wool, and that way you have that as well when you need it. Other than that, just run from the top to the bottom and get it all straightened out. Sometimes you'll have to move the pile back and forth to remove some wand marks. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Just brush it till it looks good, and then you're good to go.
Alright, so that's it. This rug is done, groomed, ready to dry. What I'm going to do with this one, since it is small, is I'm just going to take it into the back and hang it over the back of some lawn furniture that we have. It's going to be about 100 and something degrees today, so it's going to dry really nice and fast. On bigger rugs, what I would do is put some blowers underneath. I would recommend you dry it upside down. The reason behind that is if there is any kind of, say, a deep stain or something that's in the back of this rug that we didn't know about, what will happen is if you flip it and dry it that way, it's going to wick, but it's going to wick to the back. So That's just a tip that was given to me by Lisa Wagner, is always dry your rugs upside down, so I've always done it that way. You can hang rugs. On the bigger rugs, I would not hang them, because if it's, say, 300 pounds, it can stress or even break the cotton yarns. So it's not a good idea to hang heavy rugs. You could hang light rugs, it's not going to do any harm. But I always dry them flat. It's just as efficient. They dry just as fast flat, as long as the weather is permitting. I would not recommend that you do too much cleaning in the winter unless you have some sort of climate control. So if you're in a garage, that you can climate control the garage area, you can heat it. If you can heat it, that's fine. If not, I wouldn't recommend it. Just dry them in the spring, summertime, whenever it's hot, you can do rugs. It's dry times, you don't want them super prolonged, so you want to make sure you get it dry as quickly as possible. You don't want it days on end that it's sitting in your garage trying to dry. So make sure you use air movement, use blowers, use dehumidifiers if you need to, use heaters. And but what I want you to know is you don't have to be afraid to clean these rugs. You can clean them in your driveway at home and get the same professional result as you could if you had a professional pit in a facility. So that's it for today. I hope this is helpful to you guys and you guys are ready to go out and clean some rugs. So I'll talk to you in the next video. Have a great day.